welcome back to the channel. Hang on a minute. And welcome to Haweswater Reservoir in the English Lake District. Look at that. And I thought I'd come out this afternoon because the sky was blue, the weather was gorgeous. I thought I'd bring the drone out and get some autumnal shots of Haweswater. And then the 10 miles in the 10 miles it took me to get here, typical Lake District weather closed in. And it's not so much that the sun went away, but the wind's really whipped up now. And that's not good for a small drone, so you'll have to put up with these little pictures I took on my phone. Come back another day and get some nice drone shots of Haweswater. I suppose I should start this video with a bit of an apology because I've had a break over the summer this year. It's 2022 in case you're watching it in another year. But yeah, I've had a summer break from YouTube. Been doing some other things, a couple of holidays, went to India, and I have done some filming in India and some motorcycling in India and some falling off motorcycles in India, and I've got that to share with you. I've just not edited the footage yet, so sometime later on over the winter I will get that uploaded for you to have a look at. So I came up to the lakes to our little lodge this week, fully intending over half-term week to make loads of videos, finish off this series about how to pass an advanced bike test. And of course on day 2 both me and Mrs. Local found out we caught COVID, so so we've been poorly all week. Anyway, I'm feeling a bit better today. So I have come out today to make the latest in my series of videos about how to pass an advanced bike test, and in this video we're going to look at positioning. Now, I like to keep these videos somewhere between 20 minutes and half an hour, and positioning is a big subject, but I have made some other videos about this as well. So I'm going to put a link in the description below. Please have a look at these videos. I think there's one about positioning for cornering, there's one about positioning for safety, and the safety one's really important because that's something that that examiners are definitely looking for on your advanced bike test. But let's just have a general look at positioning. Let's keep it fairly straightforward. Look at that lovely rainbow. So even when the rain and the winds come in the Lake District, it's still lovely, isn't it? Look at that. So there isn't a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow, but there's a good video about positioning for you to watch. So positioning on the bike, it's one of the nice things about being on a bike, isn't it? Because you don't take up as much space, you've got more scope for moving your position on the road. You can move a bit further, you can get more of an advantage by moving your position either towards the near side or offside. So let's look at what our priorities are to start with, and number one is safety, and safety trumps everything else as well. So you've got another reason to move your position, but there's a safety reason not to, and don't do it. We're not going to compromise safety for one of the other advantages of positioning. So the other advantages are, you know, view. Might moved a little bit then. Some slippery wet leaves today. View. You know, we talked about that in the other positioning video for cornering. Going to move your position on approach to a corner to get a longer view around the corner. The further you can see around the corner, the longer you've got to stop, and the safer you are going into the corner. Bit of standing water here. Let's do a proper job on the GS, on the toes. I came through this before, so I know how deep it is. We're also going to position to let other people have a better view of us as well. So if you're positioning away from a junction to get a better view into the junction, secondary advantage of that is any vehicle approaching that junction will get an earlier and better view of you. Now when we're positioning for corners, we're also going to position in a way that straightens the corner out as much as possible, keeps the bike as upright as possible, and therefore as stable as possible. But there's other considerations for positioning as well, and you could lump these all together under safety, but you know, look at the road surface today. The bike moved a little bit under me before on some wet leaves. Ideally, you know, we're going to try and position away from that slippery stuff, away from the potholes, a position away from areas where the camber's going to pull you in and things like that. So road surface is very important. Here I'm keeping off the wet leaves and stuff and trying to keep on the tarmac as much as I can. So ordinarily I will be a little bit further to the right and a little bit quicker, but I'm trying to keep off those wet leaves and keep on the tarmac. So let's just briefly touch on positioning for safety. Go and have a look at the other video, though it covers it in a lot more detail. But you know, essentially what you want to try and do on the bike and in the car if you're a driver, on a bicycle, on a horse, whatever kind of road user you are, you should try and maintain what's officially called a zone of relative safety around you, or a safety bubble as some people call it. I quite like that term, safety bubble. It describes it quite nicely. It's essentially an area around the bike into which we don't let people intrude or get into. It's almost like your personal space, you know, if you're in a crowded area, you don't like people getting into your personal space. We have an area of personal space around the bike. Now, to be clear, it is variable. It's not a set size. So the higher your speed is, the bigger that safety bubble's going to be. The lower your speed is, it can be reduced a little bit. Obviously around town where there's lots of things going on, you do get closer to other vehicles. You know, even down to a point where if you're filtering, you can be quite close to other vehicles, but we're still maintaining a safety bubble around ourselves. In general, I like to think of it as though I'm riding a bike, but the bubble itself is maybe the size of a car or a van around me. And that's the sort of distance I want to keep away from, especially other road users. But yeah, other road furniture and other hazards and things like that. So that's the principle of a zone of relative safety. Let's think as well about what positions we can take on the road. Now generally, on a bit of a single track road here, so it's not as easy to demonstrate, but generally in civilian advanced driving, there's three positions that we're going to talk about. Positions 1, 2 and 3. And position 1, carefully just demonstrate it here, is the best part of the near side, about there. So we're out of the leaves, we're out of the detritus, we're out of any grids or anything, maybe 18 inches away from the near side curb. That will be classed as position 1. Position 2 is sort of the centre of the left-hand lane, if you like. So position 2 would be on this, again it's not ideal on this road, but position 2 would be about there. Imagine if you're driving a car, it's where your sump, where the centre line of the car would be. You have to be careful here because there's leaves on position 2. I'm avoiding it as much as I can, but just to demonstrate, this is where position 2 is. And then position 3 is towards the centre line of the road. So on approach to this left-hander, I'll take a position 3 there, just up towards the crown of the road. And you can see the advantage that gives me. It gives me a longer view around the corner. Allows me to see any other vehicles coming towards us earlier. So position 3 in the centre of the road. Now if you're doing a police advanced bike course or a police standard bike course, remember that exemption from speed limits comes in. So in order to take advantage of that exemption, to carry higher speed towards corners, your instructors will have you also using positions 4, 5 and 6. And they are pretty much what it says on the tin. 4 is the other side of the centre line if you've got one. 5 is the sump line, or the imaginary position 2 for oncoming vehicles. It's position 5. And position 6 is right over near the offside curb. And there are some real advantages to using those positioning if you've got an exemption from speed limits, you're doing a police course or one of the other emergency services courses for bikes. But of course I don't have that anymore, unfortunately. So I'm not going to start demonstrating that to you today, but it's worthwhile you knowing that. Let your instructors guide you through those scenarios with your positioning. So what safety reasons could we have for moving our positions to 1, to 2, to 3 or whatever? Well, generally when you're riding along, if there's no obvious hazards or nothing that we desperately need to move away from, then you're going to be in position 2. That's going to be your general default position. But be careful with this. This is where people get it quite wrong on advanced tests sometimes. They go to position 2 and they just sit there and they ride the whole test in position 2 and they don't change that position. But imagine for a minute, and there will be soon coming up down here, imagine there is a junction on the left. If I see a junction or an entrance on the left, there is always a possibility that a vehicle could emerge from that junction. So say where this bush is, if that was a junction on the left, I would move to position 3. And notice how I do it. It's not a sharp weave, but I make a definite move towards the crown of the road. There's a specific reason for that, but let's look at the move first. The move away from that junction gives me an earlier view into it and a longer view into it, and it also gives any vehicles coming up to that junction an earlier and longer view of me on the approach. So there's your advantage. The way that you do it, you know, a lot of people tempted, they like to make the moves very slow and gradual, and they think that smoothness is the priority with this kind of stuff. Actually, if you can make a definite move away, it'll draw that driver's attention to you, and they'll look at you. Now, they might look at you and go, what the bloody hell's he doing? I don't care, that's fine, because they're looking at me. And that's what I want their attention on me. So there's a little gate on the left here. Say I make a definite move from 2 to 3 away from that gate, and back again. They might look at me and go, what's he doing? That's fine. That's what I want. Their eyes are on me. It's the same to a lesser degree with offside junctions. So if you've got a junction on the right, you know, we can move away and towards position 1 just to give ourselves a bit of space. But it doesn't need me to tell you that your near side junctions are the one that has a little bit more risk involved for you, because you're close to those vehicles and they're more likely to pull out in front of you. Other hazards, well, you know, pedestrians. We've just passed a couple of pedestrians there. Pedestrians are a real worry to me, and those of you that from an emergency services background, you'll understand what I'm talking about here. You never know with pedestrians. Okay, if you're following a cyclist, you can make a bit of an assessment as to how safe they are or how competent they are. If you're following another driver, well, there's a good chance, not 100%, but there's a good chance that they've passed the driving test and they've got a licence and they've got insurance and everything. Not always, but most of the time. But with pedestrians, you have no idea. You have no idea what their state of mind is. Batman and Superman on a motorbike. You don't know what their state of mind is. You don't know what mood they're in. You don't know what the mental health's like. You don't know whether they've been drinking or on drugs, whether they are hearing impaired, visually impaired. You don't know what's going on in people's minds. They have the hoods up, their earphones in, their heads are looking down at the phones, aren't they? Especially when it's raining. If it's raining, the hoods are up, and they're more interested in not getting wet than not getting run down. So pedestrians, move away from them. If they're on the pavement, move away from them, because they will step out. COVID was a good example of this. People would step right out into the road to avoid crossing paths with somebody where there was no chance of catching it, and run the risk of getting run over. So if you see pedestrians, if they've got a dog, check if the dog's on a lead. Is it under control? Little yappy dogs always go for me on this bike. I don't know why. They're a bloody nuisance. But I always move away from them. Cyclists, I'll give you a tip with cyclists. When you see a cyclist in the far distance, always make your first plan to follow them. Don't plan to pass them. You plan to follow, look to pass. What I see quite often is people immediately make an assumption that they're going to pass a cyclist, and 9 times out of 10 that works, but on the 10th occasion it doesn't, and they have to brake hard, get in behind the cyclist, and then they're right on the back wheel and they're sort of almost harassing them until they can get into a position where they can pass them. If you make your first plan to follow them, you'll roll off the gas a bit earlier, you'll roll in behind them. 9 times out of 10 the pass will be on, it'll be fine. But if it's not, you'll come in much more gracefully, a little bit of braking, it'll be nice and controlled, and then you just hold back and wait for the pass when it's on. So, plan to follow, look to pass. Some of you will have heard planning to stop, looking to go on a roundabout. That links in nicely with that one. But all the other principles about positioning for safety are contained in the other video that I've mentioned a couple of times before, so please go and have a look at that. Positioning for corners, I've covered that in another video as well, so again, like I said before, I'll link that in the description below. But fundamentally, for a right-hander like this, position 1 gives you a longer view around the corner, gives you an earlier view of the movement in the limit point as well, so it gives you a nice early indication what that limit point's doing. Right, so for the left-hander, I'm going to position up towards the centre of the road, just towards the crown of the road, position 3, just to give me a slightly longer view, and then adjust that position for the oncoming car. So what other stuff are we going to position for? Well, we're going to position for road defects and things on the road that we want to avoid. We mentioned wet leaves before, you saw the bike move a little bit. Potholes are to be avoided on the bike. White paint, coming into autumn now and then winter, so any areas of damp, always be careful under these shaded areas. The little microclimates. Those are the areas that the sun doesn't get to, and they stay really cold and icy when everywhere else is thawed out. Watch out for those. Watch out for road camber as well. Now, ordinarily we would take a near side position 1 for this corner, but look, the water's gathering there in the centre, so actually I'm going to take position 3 as we get close to the corner, because I know on the crown of the road's a little bit higher. It's designed so the water drains off to both sides, so on a day like that I'll move away from them. We'll stay out here in position 3 away from these cyclists. Not ideal for an approach to a right-hander, but we compromise our position for safety. This is the important thing to remember, because this is something that I see on test regularly, is that people turn up on test and have a very fixed idea about the positioning. They've been told that if it's a right-hand bend, they need to position near side, and they fail to make a compromise for safety. So it's really important that you might want to position near side, but there might be a reason not to. Safety comes first. So just put that little principle into practice now with this cyclist. He's tonking downhill here. I'm planning to follow him, I'm not planning to pass him. Now I'm looking past him, I can see there might be an opportunity, but there's some pedestrians there with a dog. Checking his shoulders, moving out, giving him room. But my original plan was to follow him. Now we've got some pedestrians on the offside, so rather than going position 2, I'm going position 1, just to stay away from them, create a bit more space. You never know with pedestrians. Look out, there could be red squirrels. There are red squirrels around here. We have one that visits us regularly. One oncoming vehicle, so I'm going to adjust my position towards the near side, and then once they've gone past, looking across, I can see there's nothing coming, so I can take a position 3 and stay on the dry tarmac. So you can see there's lots of priorities and lots of advantages I can get by moving the bike's position, and they're quite subtle moves really. You know, the difference between position 1 here, wait till these cars have gone past, but the difference between position 1 here and position 3 is only what, a couple of metres, if that, 1.5 metres. It's not much, but it does bring a significant advantage. When I moved back then, I immediately got a better view around this corner of this car manoeuvring like a dipstick. Kids on bicycles here, so again, looking behind, I'm rolling off the gas, positioning near side. Here's another thing that people get wrong. They prioritise speed over position in the system. So we've got an oncoming car coming towards us here, so what I'm doing is I'm choosing the position that's near side now, that keeps me away from that oncoming car. Not slowing down for it. The chap on test the other week, every time something came towards us, boy, he was on the brakes and then into the near side. You always need to slow, move yourself away from them, give yourself a bit of space. When there's a line of parked cars, move out early and look past them. Then if you need to slow down, you've still got time to slow down, but move out early, get your view. You might see that it's on and it's clear and you can just roll past them at the speed that you're going. There's 5 phases of the system. You don't always have to do anything at those action phases. It could be that all you need to do is adjust your position, then your speed and gear are okay and you don't need any further acceleration. Now, one other aspect of positioning I want to talk to you while we're out today is the following position. This is something that people get wrong quite commonly. Commonly? Is that a word? Frequently. I've not made a video like this for a while. So getting a good following position on the vehicle in front gives you a number of advantages. First of all, get a good view of the road ahead that you can adjust by slight deviations near side and off side. So if I move near side now, I can look up the inside of this van, and then as I get closer to this corner I can move towards the off side, and that near side view is extended, but I'm not moving fully because of that lorry. Second advantage, I can stop if the vehicle in front brakes suddenly without warning. Now there's no reason for him to do, and I should, because of the first advantage, I should be able to see past him, see what he's going to brake for. But he might do, in which case I need to be able to stop. And a good following position is far enough back to allow me to do that. There's another advantage relating to braking distances, and that is if I've got somebody close up behind me, the vehicle in front brakes suddenly, I don't have to brake as hard, so there's less chance that that vehicle behind me will run in the back of me. The next advantage is you can see when it's clear to move into the overtake. So although it's far enough back to stop if the vehicle in front brakes suddenly, it's also far enough forward that we can almost immediately move into the overtake if it's on. That means by not dropping back too far, we can very quickly get into the overtake. We're not spending ages catching up with the vehicle in front to get the overtake in if it presents itself. And there's another advantage listed in roadcraft, which is it keeps you out of the spray of vehicles, keeps you a good view of the road ahead when the roads are wet and the spray being thrown up. But I want you to keep those two key advantages in mind. First of all, we're not too far forward. It's a common thing that you see with motorcyclists. They will sit, just demonstrate for you now at low speeds here, they'll sit there right on the right on the back quarter panel of the van in front, of the vehicle in front. It's much too close, you're compromising your safety, and it's unnecessary on a bike. We're not that desperate for the overtake, and if we want to get the overtaking, it's easier from here. I can see better from here, it's safer. Bikes are quick, they accelerate really quick, and it's very easy to overtake on a bike from a longer following position. So the mistake I see on test is that people will get into a following position, maintain it for a bit, and then go, oh, there's no overtake on here, and then they just relax. And after another mile or so, an overtake will present itself, and they're too far back to get advantage of it. They're too far back to get that overtake. So even on police tests, you'll see this. They'll catch up, follow it for a while, and then drop back and go, oh, there's no overtake on there, there's no opportunity to overtake. Cool, then it presents itself and they're too far back. By the time they've caught up, the opportunity's gone. So don't go to sleep in your following position. Stay alert, look where the opportunities might be, and then take the opportunities when they present themselves. I'll talk about overtaking for advanced bike tests in another video. You don't always have to get an overtaking at all to pass an advanced bike test, but if a nice straightforward one presents itself, you need to be in a position to get it. What's a good following position? Well, they say only a full brake's the 2-second rule. The only rule about 2 seconds is that you shouldn't get any closer than 2 seconds. I'm not a big advocate of the overtaking position, for example. It gets you a bit close. But on a car like this, 2 seconds is fine, and it compensates for speed. If you get a bit faster, 2 seconds is a bit longer. You slow down, 2 seconds a bit closer. On a larger vehicle like that van we were following, 2.5 to 3. On the lorry, maybe 4 seconds. Remember, a big vehicle fills your field of view. So just pick a good following position that gives you a view ahead but doesn't drop you back too far. So that's it for positioning. Please go and have a look at those other videos. But let's have a look now at what is expected from your examiners if you're doing an advanced bike test. Let's look at the civilian organisations to start with. Let's look at ROSPA and IAM Road Smart. So if you're doing a ROSPA test or an IAM test, if you want to get a pass at IAM, or you want to get a bronze or a silver at ROSPA, well, your position's got to be reasonably consistent. Always use that word, don't I? Consistent. Reasonably consistent. Remember that by moving your position, it's a good opportunity for you to demonstrate to your examiner that you're looking in the right place, that you're taking in these developing hazards and that you're doing something about it. So if you see a junction on the near side and you make a definite move away from it, your examiner will realise, oh yeah, they've seen that, moved away. Now that doesn't mean you have to swerve and weave your way down the road, that's not what we're looking for. We're just looking for a bit of a recognition of the things that could be a risk to you. Like this junction on the near side here. It'll move away from it. And back to position 2. A few little errors with positioning are forgivable. Not looking for perfection at that level. But on the whole, we want to see good choice of position, good appropriate choice of position, certainly as far as safety is concerned, and an ability to compromise your other reasons for positioning for safety. If you want to get a gold at Rossborough, you want to get a first at IM, well again, consistency is the key. I say this every time, don't I? Consistently good positioning all the way through, consistent following position especially, that's really important. Demonstrate to your examiner that you know where you want the bike to be at all times. Now, one thing to bear in mind, when you're on test, your examiner is going to be swooping around all over the back of you. Don't pay any attention to their position. They're having a look at you. They will be out of position. When I'm testing, I'm quite often out of position, tucked up the near side, having a look at what you're doing with your feet and your hands. I want to see how you're using the bike's control, so I will be out of position. Ignore me. Just if you look at me and think, oh, he's in the near side, don't think that's where you need to be. Just choose your own position, ride your own ride on test. For the police, I said before, more extreme positioning, especially when the speeds are up. You're going to be going further offside, especially on the approach to left-handers, to get your longer view around those corners. Be guided by your instructors as to when that's appropriate. And it's appropriate when, you know, you're looking at taking full advantage of that exemption from speed limits, moving the bike along, maybe up to 3 figure speeds. That's when you're going to start getting that advantage of positions 4, 5 and 6. But other than that, consistency again is the #1 aim. Consistently good positioning, putting the bike in the right place at the right time. I remember, positioning is the thing that really keeps you safer than everything else. If you move away from something, move away from it. You know, those of you that are in the police, if you think about your personal safety training, somebody's coming at you with a knife, the safest thing to do is not tackle the person with a knife, it's to turn around and bloody leg it. Keep some space between you and whatever it is that's causing you the danger. On the road, well, that's everything. So use your position appropriately, move away from things. So that's it for this video. Hope you found it useful. It's nice to get back into doing these videos again. Quite enjoyed this. Bit of sunshine there as well. Let's put the drop down visor down. Try and get a few more of these done now. I want to get this series of videos about how to pass an advanced bike test. I'd like to get it finished off before Christmas 22. So if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I'll do something about masters as well on the bike. I know I did a video recently about masters in the car, which was quite well received. So I'll do one on the bike as well about how to get your IAM masters qualification on the bike. A few people asked me to do that. And of course, got the India videos coming. Here's a little preview of that. So me and a friend hired some bikes and went over Kardung La Pass in Ladakh. It's somewhere near 18,000 feet above sea level, so that was a fabulous couple of days out on the bikes, that little Royal Enfields. But for now, thanks for watching. Go and have a look at the website as well, reslocal.com. Loads more information there about advanced and performance driving and riding. Information about the books that I've ridden, and how you can get hold of a copy through Amazon, and how you can get a day's driver or rider coaching with me. If you so wish, we'll come have a ride on some of these roads if you like. Based in Penrith half the time now, so if you fancy a ride out up here, get in touch, drop me a line. But for now, thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, got something out of it. This is Pooley Bridge. We'll see you next time.